Methodos, the inner path of pragmatization. A grammar for becoming. A journey through thought, technology, and the emotional body toward embodied agency. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about methodology. Not in the academic sense, not in some intellectualized framework, but as a way of living, of learning, and becoming through repetition. I'm someone who picks on patterns easily. I observe, I repeat, I absorb. And then, through the empirical repetition, something starts to unfold. A way, a path. That's the method. Right now, I'm immersed in artificial intelligence. I've been studying language systems, not just because I speak several languages, including the archetypal ones, but because GPT in particular mirrors something very real: the way we structure thoughts, the way we train ideas, the way we speak to ourselves. GPT stands for Generative Pre-Trained Transformer. I love these words. Generative means life, it means fertility, potential, creation. Pre-trained means you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a system that's already been shaped, and now you're shaping it further. Transformer, well, that's the vessel. It takes in language, meaning, emotion, and it transforms that input into something else. This is why understanding how to use GPT is not about tech. It's about agency. It's about clarity. And most of all, it's about developing your own methodology of inquiry. Because prompting is a form of leadership. And you can't lead if you don't know what you want. And you can't want anything clearly if you don't know what you need. And how can you know your needs if you haven't built the practice of listening to your emotional body? This is what I've been doing. I didn't find the right teacher right away. So I turned to my brother, who, like me, is a curious mind. And about 6 months ago, he introduced me to these incredible millennial led AI classes in Spanish. That was another layer of expansion, learning something radically new in a language that isn't the dominant one in my daily life. It was a double untraining, a kind of reverse engineer of the mind. And I want to say something here. I love this generation. I love Gen Z too. Their relentless questioning, their capacity to see through false authority, their willingness to live inside contradiction, it inspires me. I don't see them as younger, I see them as equals, allies. They ask questions that help me piece together what I've gathered throughout my life. They help me synthesize. But to be honest, I've always loved technology. I've never feared it. I dive in. When I first had assistants in my studio over 20 years ago, I didn't know how to direct them. At the beginning, I thought they were useless, so I did everything myself. But I realized that wasn't efficient, and more importantly, it wasn't generous. I took time to learn more about them and find if they could align with the needs of the project. So I learned how to delegate, but I did it through the same method I use now with prompts. Ask clearly. Make sure the person or the machine has the capacity and the will to respond with joy. Otherwise, the result is empty. So now when I prompt, it's the same as when I once led a team. The beauty is now I outsource fabrication and creation is done with my trained digital assistants/agents. I say, here's what I want. Here's what I need based on careful set of instructions and initiatives. Let's see what you come up with. And sometimes the response is amazing. I hadn't even seen that perspective. Other times I say, thanks, but we're going to keep it my way. But either way, I stay in relationship. I don't abdicate authority. A GPT is an assistant. An assistant waits for your command. An AOES is an agent, something you train to act on your behalf. An agent-oriented expert system, a concept used in AI development to describe systems that act semi-independently based on internal logic or goals. Your inner agent is what you create when your will and your methodology align because it has agency. But you can't train an agent until you've trained yourself, your inner methodology, your inner structure. And this is something I've been reflecting on deeply during Aries season. Because Aries, at its essence, isn't just about movement. It is about the will to move from within without asking for permission. We have to learn to create agency in ourselves and stop assisting the wills of others. There's a real danger now, especially with Neptune in Aries. The danger is that we hide behind the collective, behind abstraction, that we dissolve into isms, capitalism, communism, technocracy, etc. That we stop showing up for our own thoughts, that we forget how to take the first step. You need a method, and you also need a protocol, not in the military sense, but in the architectural one. A protocol is a structure, it's a set of instructions, a logical frame. And when that frame is clear, your emotional body can improvise inside it, above it. It will need the senses to translate its meaning in that specific moment. This is how I work. That's my actual methodology. I give my mind a structure, and then I let the rest of my intuition, instincts, and wisdom drive through me, dance through it. This is where we return to the etymology. Methodology comes from the Greek methodos, meta, after or along, and hodos, way, path. It is essentially a grammar for becoming. It is the path you take toward a goal, the inner path that makes an idea real. Pragma, from the same root of pragmatic, means deed, act, thing, done. So, methodos is the road and pragma is the arrival. Without method, you stay in abstraction. Without pragmatization, your thoughts don't take form. And here's something else I've been thinking about. Language is the oldest technology we have. Before the machine, before the screen, before the printed page, there was the word. The word is what makes us human. The word is what allows the imagination to pragmatize. No other species we know of speaks reality into being the way we do. And so, if language is the beginning, why would we fear it? Why would we fear shaping it or being shaped by it? In the beginning, there was the word, the logos. That's not just scripture, that is structure. Without language, how do you name your desire? How do you know where you're going if you don't know how to say it? Language is not something we should be afraid of. Language is how we build a path, the Methodos, the long road from the invisible to the real. Ding, ding, ding. The lunation, anchoring the will. As we move through this week, we're entering the first quarter square of the moon, landing in Cancer, squaring the sun in Aries. This lunation is about friction between instinct and emotion, between the desire to act, Aries, and the need to feel safe to move, Cancer. Shortly after the square, the moon will conjoin Mars and square transiting Chiron, and here's where it gets really real. Mars is movement, Mars is the will to act, but the moon in Cancer says, now without checking in with your body, now without tending to the wave of emotion that's been building. Vulnerability needs to be dressed up in courage and care. This is not about emotional indulgence. This is about emotional alignment because when your emotional body is not rooted, your actions will scatter. This lunation reminds us that agency doesn't come from reaction, it comes from coherence. And while all of this is happening, Venus and Mercury are still retrograde in Pisces. This is not time to finalize, this is time to listen. What do you need? What do you value? And more importantly, do you know how to ask for it? This is the moment to train your inner transformer, not just external AI, but the one inside of you, the one who processes your needs, The one who turns your unspoken emotions into clear, beautiful requests. The one who can receive an idea, feel it fully, and turn it into action. Because in the end, that's where reality begins, in the breath, in the belly, in the base of you. This is not the time to abandon yourself. This is a time to build the agency that no machine, no trend, and no external voice can give you. Ding, ding, ding. The mirror and the maker. I want to end this reflection by anchoring the why. I don't use AI to create my visuals. I generate my images myself. That's my gift, my eye, my imagination. I don't use GPT to write my text either. I dictate, I speak, I think through language. I use assistants slash agents I've trained to help me organize time, refine structure, and define terms. But I stay in authorship. I remain the sovereign voice. Because for me, this isn't about making machines think for me. It's about making space for me to think deeply, slowly, and truly. I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to remind you that you already know how to ask. If I were to leave you with one metaphor, one poetic figure that captures this balance between creation and caution, I wouldn't choose Frankenstein. That's too tragic, too reactive. I might choose something more ambiguous, more mythic. Perhaps the mirror in Borges' writing, the one that reflects and multiplies but cannot originate. Quote, I'm not sure that I exist. Actually, I'm all the writers that I have read, all the people that I have met, and all the women that I have loved, all the cities I have visited. Jorge Luis Borges. Or maybe I'll choose the figure of Ada Lovelace herself. Quote, the brain of mine is something more than merely mortal, as time will show. Ada Lovelace, end of quote. She didn't fear the machine, she saw it as a poetic engine. She believed it could reflect the mind of the human, not replace it, not dominate it, but collaborate with it. That's the invitation here. Train your transformer, shape your methods, feel your emotional body, anchor your will, and don't forget, you are the source of meaning. Ding, ding. Footnote. In 1843, Ada Lovelace wrote an annotation that will quietly become one of the most visionary articulations in the history of computing. While Charles Babbage designed machines to compute numbers, Lovelace saw something more, something poetic, even magical. As historian and curator Doron Swade puts it, quote, others saw something that Babbage, in some sense, failed to see. In Babbage's world, his engines were bound by number. What Lovelace saw was that the number could represent entities other than quantity, letters, musical notes. Once you have a machine for manipulating symbols according to the rules, of which number is only one instance, you move from calculation to general purpose computation. And looking back from the present high ground of modern computing, if we're sifting history for that transition, it was made explicit by Ada in that 1843 paper. End of quote. This is the conceptual bridge between Lovelace's vision and the emergence of transformers like GPT. What GPTs do is not simply process information. They operate on language as symbolic system. They transform prompts, words, symbols, grammar, into structured outputs based on patterns and rules. This capacity, the symbolic manipulation of meaning, is what Lovelace foresaw. She wasn't imagining a calculator. She was imagining a poetic machine, a machine that could respond to meaning, not just numbers. In this sense, every time you write a prompt, you're not just issuing a command. You're engaging in symbolic computation. You're participating in a lineage that started not with code, but with vision. And it was Ada Lovelace who first spoke it out loud. Quote, imagination is inextricably bound up with reality in a way that it is a bad fellow. Fantasy is not. Now, there's a lot of confusion about what we can know, and this comes from the fact that we live in a world of data, of enormous quantities and data, and this leads to many misunderstandings. Dr. Ian McGilchrist, the sovereign of truth. End of quote. This is the difference. AI doesn't imagine, but when shaped with coherence, it can become a mirror where imagination finds structure, not escape. Dropping next week is not a code, it's a codex, alchemical cognition. P.S. If you may know, I offer astrological readings, and in the near future, I plan to expand these sessions to help you identify the assistant and agent within your chart, your unique method, your inner protocol, your way of translating desire into action. This could take the form of a small study group or as an add on session to your individual reading. If that resonates, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to support you in creating a system that reflects your own rhythm, your own voice, your own agency. Ding, ding. I'll be traveling this week first to Dallas, where I'll be imparting a workshop on the value of scarce time at the Bitcoin conference called BitBlock Boom. And immediately after, I'm flying to Seattle to install Arcana, a public art commission created for the University of Washington Interdisciplinary Engineering Building. Arcana is an immersive glass and metal site intervention that wraps around the architecture like a dynamic stage, embracing and shaping an ever changing experience through light and perspective. Vibrant glass panels interact with metal silhouettes, forming layer compositions that shift depending on the viewer's position, both from within the building and from the surrounding outdoor spaces. Inspired by Oscar Schlemmer's triadic ballet, where the human form is reimagined through spheres, cones, and cylinders, Arcana translates this geometry into a structural language of engineering, integrating form, motion, and perception. Have a great week.